Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. We are taking an incredible journey back in time today to explore a truly fascinating piece of history. We're going to look at how a single, incredibly painful departure from a beloved homeland ended up forging an entirely new, unified nation. It's a story of sacrifice, resilience, and honestly, unparalleled vision.
Okay, let's dive into this by putting yourself in a pretty much impossible situation. Imagine you're recognized as this brilliant, once-in-a-generation leader. You're surrounded by everything you've ever known, your friends, your culture. But your very presence is tearing your home apart. What do? Do you stay and fight for your rightful place, or do you literally walk away from your homeland forever just to avoid endless bloodshed? Well, this was the ultimate dilemma faced by a man named Zhabdrung Ngawang Namgyal. And his answer to this question changed the map of the Himalayas forever.
Section 1. Conflict in his homeland. Tibet, 1594.
And this brilliantly illustrates where our story really begins. To understand why he had to make such a drastic choice, we've got to look at the world he was born into. Ngawang Namgyal wasn't just your average kid. Born in 1594 into a highly influential family connected to the great Drukpa tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, he was trained from his very first breath to be a powerful leader. But, a rapid rise almost always leads to inevitable friction. By the early 1600s, his teachers had already recognized his incredible intelligence and spiritual ability. He was deeply respected. But by 1616, as often happens when someone rises to prominence that quickly, his brilliance was met with intense, powerful opposition. So why was there so much pushback? This is literally the core of our explainer today, the real reason why he had to leave. In Tibet, during this period, religious authority and political power were dangerously, intimately connected. Different groups weren't just sitting around debating theology, they were fiercely competing for massive political influence and control. Disagreements over leadership quickly escalated into serious physical conflicts. The environment around him was just becoming incredibly toxic.
Section 2. The choice to leave. An impossible ultimatum.
The pressure from powerful rivals finally hit a boiling point. Because church and state were so tangled up, his very existence as a spiritual leader was viewed as a direct political threat. He was handed an impossible ultimatum, and I want you to imagine this absolute sliding doors moment. Option 1, stay in his homeland, dig his heels in, and fight a never-ending violent political struggle against his challengers. Option 2, completely abandon his home, his comforts, his entire history, and journey into the harsh, unknown Himalayas to find a place where he could freely establish his teachings without the taint of political warfare. Do you fight a toxic system, or do you leave it behind to build something pure? He chose the second path.
It is absolutely staggering to realize the emotional weight of this moment when you consider his age. He was 22. In 1616, at an age where most of us are literally just trying to figure out what we want to major in or do with our lives, he made the monumental decision to walk away from everything he knew and step into the complete unknown.
Section 3. Crossing the Great Mountains. Into the unknown.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because the unknown in the 17th century was a terrifying prospect. This wasn't a quick flight or a scenic train ride. It meant a brutal, unforgiving crossing of the great Himalayan mountains on foot or horseback. No roads, no modern comforts, no high-tech winter gear. They endured freezing winds, violent storms, and insanely dangerous mountain paths. The physical toll was immense. And through all this exhaustion, what do you think they prioritized carrying? Not gold, not treasures. They carried sacred Buddhist texts and the teachings of their lineage. He and his loyal followers were quite literally carrying the foundation of a new society on their backs.
But here's the crazy dramatic twist in our story. When they finally descended the mountains and reached their destination, the land we now know as Bhutan, they were greeted by breathtaking beauty. We're talking green valleys, flowing rivers, soaring cliffs. However, underneath that gorgeous scenery, he discovered a tragic irony. He had fled a conflicted home to find a place of peace, but instead, he walked right into a deeply fractured land. Section 4. A divided new world. A beautiful but fractured land.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is comparing what Bhutan was to what it needed to be. Before Zhabdrung arrived, it wasn't a united nation at all. It was just a collection of isolated valleys completely cut off from one another by immense mountains and forests. A person living in one valley might never even visit the next one over. Different regions had distinct rival clans, separate local rulers, and people who shared a Buddhist faith but possessed absolutely no shared vision. But Zhabdrung looked at this fractured reality and knew exactly what was needed to avoid the disastrous fate of his homeland.
He saw that separated valleys needed connected communication routes. Distinct rulers needed a central organizing system. And most importantly, they needed a foundation built on shared values and trust, because a house made of beautiful pieces is still incredibly weak if those pieces aren't joined together. And here is what made him so remarkable. As a powerful leader coming in from the outside, it would have been so easy to just try and conquer this divided land by force. But he understood that unity forged by weapons or fear, that never lasts. He proved to the people that he didn't come just to teach, and he certainly didn't come to conquer. He came to serve and protect. He gained the respect of ordinary people through immense patience, by actually listening to them, and by living as a humble spiritual practitioner with zero desire for personal wealth or luxury.
Section 5. Building a Shared Identity. Foundations of Peace.
Slowly, the people began to realize that this master had arrived right when they needed guidance the most. But Zhabdrung knew that a country needs way more than just a good spiritual teacher. It needs robust institutions that can outlast any single person's lifetime. He took those hard, painful lessons he learned from the political failures back in Tibet and began to build a shared identity for Bhutan. His ultimate architectural solution was the Dzong. When you see these magnificent structures today with their massive white walls and golden roofs, you might just think, wow, beautiful fort. But they were brilliant tools of unification. He brought everything under one roof: a monastery to preserve the teachings, a government center for administration, a fortress for protection, and a towering physical symbol that all these separate valleys now belong to one shared future.
So the crucial point is, remember exactly why he had to flee Tibet in the first place? Right, because religion and politics were a toxic, messy mix. To prevent this from ever happening in Bhutan, he created the Chösi-Nyiden, or the dual system of governance. He deliberately separated the powers. You have spiritual authority to protect traditions and provide moral guidance, while a completely distinct civil authority would handle practical administration and resources, together, but separate. It created a perfect balance. It was a genius structural fix to the exact political-religious overlap that drove him out of his home.
The sheer speed of this transformation was monumental. I mean, look at this timeline. After arriving in 1616, he got straight to work. By 1629, he completes the Simtaka Dzong, strategically placing it on a communication route to connect regions. In the 1630s, he establishes the incredibly important Dzong, right at the joining of two rivers, literally symbolizing life and connection. By the time he passed away in 1651, he hadn't just built structures, he had transformed a scattered collection of isolated communities into a fully unified, functioning nation.
Section 6. The Master's Lasting Legacy. From Stranger to Founder.
The young man who had arrived as a total stranger over the mountains became the ultimate founder. In his later years, as he naturally withdrew from public life, the really beautiful thing was that the systems he built didn't collapse without him. The Dzongs, the dual government, the shared Bhutanese identity, they all seamlessly outlived him. This quote right here perfectly captures his Mahayana Buddhist philosophy of leadership. A country is not built only by conquering land. A country is built by creating a bond between its people. He firmly believed that power without compassion only creates suffering. His authority ultimately didn't come from a show of strength. It came from the deep, unwavering trust he built by taking on the responsibility to truly serve the welfare of society.
Which leaves us with this final, awe-inspiring thought to chew on. Think back to that 22-year-old facing an impossible choice in Tibet. How did that single agonizing decision to walk away from a conflicted home end up giving birth to an entirely new, deeply unified nation that still thrives today? It's just a staggering testament to vision, sacrifice, and the profound impact one person can have on the course of history. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it leaves you as fascinated by this incredible piece of history as I am.